I'll show you the most effective way to teach a woman a lesson, and it's not what you think. Sounds like the perfect revenge, right? Ignoring her, pulling away, making her feel the sting of your absence. That's the instinct for most men when they feel betrayed, disrespected, or just plain hurt. But here's the hard truth. Ignoring her might feel good in the short term, but it rarely works out the way you think. Most men never learn this, and those who do, they never go back. The impulse to punish with silence often leaves you stuck in a cycle of resentment, confusion, and loss of control. You think you're teaching her a lesson, but in reality, you're only hurting yourself. Your pride might feel vindicated for a moment, but that nagging feeling of emptiness doesn't go away. So what's the alternative? What's the real way to regain your power and self-respect without falling into the trap of passive aggression or emotional manipulation? It's time to stop reacting out of anger and start responding with purpose. In this video, we're going to explore the emotional stakes of ignoring someone and why self-empowered, assertive boundaries are the real answer. It's time to rethink how you handle conflict. What you think teaching a lesson looks like is simple. Revenge, the cold shoulder, ignoring her, letting her feel the weight of your absence, making her sweat. You think that withholding affection or cutting her off will make her realize her mistake, maybe even beg for forgiveness. After all, if you feel disrespected, why shouldn't she feel the same? It feels like justice, a moment of sweet satisfaction, the kind of power that comes when you take control of the narrative. But here's the truth. What actually happens is something far worse. You might win the short game, but you lose the long one. When you silence her out of anger, you're not teaching a lesson. You're punching your own dignity. You're escalating the conflict, dragging it out in a way that leaves both of you hurt, confused, and more distant than before. The cold shoulder might feel like a blow to her ego, but it's a death blow to your own emotional stability. Think of it like a coach benching a player for poor performance. The coach doesn't ignore the player completely. Instead, he explains the rules, sets expectations, and adjusts behavior through clear feedback. That's leadership. But you know what ignoring the player entirely is like? It's more like an arsonist setting the field on fire. Sure, it's dramatic, but what's left afterward? Nothing but ashes and regret. The revenge instinct is emotionally satisfying because it taps into our natural desire for retribution. But strategically, it's foolish. It leaves both parties in a toxic, unproductive space. And that's not the lesson you want to teach. The silent treatment may feel like the perfect form of punishment, a cold, calculated way to make her feel what you're feeling. But here's the ugly truth. It's emotional abuse, plain and simple. Ignoring someone as a form of control does more than hurt. It undermines trust, fosters resentment, and makes the situation 10 times worse than it needs to be. Psychologically speaking, the silent treatment taps into a basic human need, connection. When you withdraw, you force the other person to question their worth, their actions, and their entire relationship with you. Instead of resolving the conflict, you're creating uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds anxiety, and anxiety breeds resentment. The longer the silence, the deeper the hurt, and the less likely the relationship is to recover. What begins as a lesson quickly turns into emotional manipulation. Look at how children react to withdrawal from their caregivers. When love or attention is withheld, they become anxious, confused, and often act out more because they don't know how to fix what's broken. This same dynamic happens in adult relationships. You might think you're punishing her, but all you're doing is causing damage to the emotional fabric of the relationship. You're creating a toxic environment where no one feels safe to speak, act, or even be themselves. And here's the kicker. If you make this a habit, you'll lose respect, not gain it. People don't look at someone who uses silence to manipulate and think, wow, that guy's in control. They think, that guy's petty, insecure, and emotionally immature. This kind of behavior doesn't build power. It diminishes your options and leaves you isolated. Do this enough times, and you'll burn bridges, not teach lessons. Ignoring someone doesn't just make them feel bad. It messes with their brain. The psychology behind it is rooted in attachment styles, reward schedules, and scarcity signaling. When you withdraw your attention, you activate the same mechanisms that are at play in addictive behavior. Your inconsistent attention creates a kind of emotional intermittent reinforcement, a reward schedule where affection and approval are given unpredictably. It's like playing a slot machine. Sometimes you get the jackpot, sometimes you get nothing. But the brain keeps trying, hoping for that next win. This cycle of hope and disappointment is what makes the silent treatment so dangerous. It keeps them emotionally hooked, always seeking validation, never knowing when or if it will come in a romantic relationship. This dynamic can feel intoxicating at first, but over time, it creates emotional dependence. It's manipulative because you're not giving the other person the clarity and consistency they need to feel secure. Instead, you're keeping them in a state of emotional limbo. And that's the opposite of healthy connection. Contrast this with healthy space. Healthy space means creating emotional distance to recalibrate and think clearly, not to punish or provoke guilt. Think of it like pruning a tree. When you prune, you carefully cut away dead branches to allow new growth. But if you go around with an axe and start hacking at the tree, you're not pruning, you're burning it down. When you withdraw from a relationship to create space, it's about allowing both people to grow independently, maintaining respect and dignity. But if your withdrawal is meant to punish or manipulate, you're not fostering growth, you're creating emotional destruction. The result is not a stronger bond, but a shattered connection. If you want to really teach a woman a lesson, it's not about ignoring her or playing emotional games. The answer lies in something far more powerful: assertive boundaries. Boundaries aren't about punishment. They're about teaching respect for both yourself and the other person. The difference between a boundary and a punishment is clear. A boundary protects you from further harm. A punishment is a reaction designed to hurt or control. So, how do you establish and enforce boundaries effectively without falling into the trap of manipulation or silence? It's all about clarity, confidence, and maintaining your frame. Step-by-step boundaries in action. Immediate response, top statement. The first step is to stay calm and composed. Don't let your emotions take over. When you're addressing a disrespectful behavior, use I statements to avoid sounding accusatory. For example, I feel disrespected when you describe the behavior. It's important for me that we communicate respectfully, and I don't feel that's happening right now. This approach makes it clear that the issue is about your needs and feelings, not her as a person. Consequences with timelines. If the behavior continues, you need to set clear, actionable consequences with a timeline for resolution. This isn't an ultimatum. It's a simple fact of how you want to be treated. If this continues, I'll need some time to myself to reassess things. If this issue isn't addressed in the next time frame, I'll have to consider taking a break from this relationship. By giving a timeline, you set the expectation that the behavior will be addressed and change is required. This is not about controlling her. It's about preserving your emotional health and making clear what you're willing to tolerate. Escalation ladder. Boundaries often need to be escalated depending on how someone reacts. Here's a simple escalation strategy. Step 1. Verbal boundary. Calmly state the boundary as above. Step 2. Dignified withdrawal. If the behavior persists, calmly withdraw your attention or presence for a short period. This isn't a punishment. It's a way to give yourself space to cool down, but also to let her know that this behavior has real consequences. Example: I need to step away for a bit to think about this. Let's talk again when we're both ready to communicate respectfully. Step 3. Clear ultimatum if necessary. If there's still no change after the previous steps, it may be time to make it clear that this relationship can't continue without mutual respect. Example: I've communicated how I feel, and if this behavior continues, I'll have to end this relationship. Note, ultimatums are serious and should only be used as a final step when the relationship is at a crossroads. Use them sparingly and never out of anger. How to maintain your frame. It's easy to get caught up in the emotions of the moment. But to enforce these boundaries, you must maintain your frame. This means you stay calm, firm, and consistent in your actions. If you've set a boundary, don't backpedal. If you say you need time to yourself, take that time. If you said you're willing to walk away, be prepared to follow through. Avoid the urge to seek validation for your actions. You're doing this for yourself, not for applause or reaction. The key is not to react emotionally or defensively when she challenges your boundary. Stand firm, stay composed, and avoid retaliating with silent treatment, anger, or public shaming. What to avoid silent retaliation? Never use silence as a form of emotional punishment. The difference between needing space and punishing her with silence is huge. Make sure your boundaries are communicated with clarity, not coldness, public shaming. Never shame her publicly or humiliate her in front of others. This doesn't make you tough or alpha. It makes you look petty and insecure, giving in to guilt. If you've set a boundary and she tries to guilt trip you into letting it slide, don't back down. Stick to your principles. Why this works. Men who master assertive boundaries get peace, options, and respect. They never have to play games or manipulate to get their point across. They lead with dignity, and they know their worth. The rest? The ones who react emotionally, who withhold affection or escalate things into petty revenge. They get drama, frustration, and a growing sense of powerlessness. The key is simple. Boundaries are about your self-respect, not revenge. When you draw a line in the sand with calm authority, you not only protect your own well-being, but you also teach others how to treat you. This is real power, and it's what every man deserves. Asterisk John 38 had been dating Sarah for about 6 months. They had a great connection at first. Late-night conversations, laughter over dinner, a growing sense of comfort. But recently, something had shifted. Sarah had become distant, canceling plans without explanation, pulling away emotionally. John felt it. He had been patient, tried to understand, but after a particularly hurtful comment she made about his career, something in him snapped. He decided he wasn't going to let her walk all over him anymore. So he gave her the silent treatment. He ignored her texts, didn't return her calls, and when she showed up at his apartment, he barely acknowledged her. He wanted her to feel what he felt, confused, rejected, and desperate to know where she stood. At first, he thought it would work. He imagined her calling him up, apologizing, telling him she was wrong. But instead, he got the opposite. The first few days, Sarah seemed confused. She called and texted more, but John didn't budge. He watched her frustration grow, and soon the confusion turned into anger. One night, she showed up at his door, her eyes red from tears, her voice sharp. "John, what is this? Why are you acting like this?" she demanded, standing there in the hallway, her arms crossed. "What's your problem? Why are you ignoring me?" John felt a mix of satisfaction and guilt. He could feel the power he had, but also the tension in the air. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't begging for him back. Instead, she was getting angry, defensive, and hurt. That wasn't the outcome he had wanted. But then, something clicked. The next day, John decided to change his approach. When Sarah called again, this time, he picked up. His tone was calm, steady, but firm. "Sarah, I'm not ignoring you to punish you. I've been feeling disrespected, and it's important for me to have space when that happens. I need us to communicate better, to show each other respect. I can't continue if this pattern doesn't change." There was a pause. On the other end of the line, he could hear Sarah breathing heavily, unsure of how to respond. Then, finally, she said, quietly, "I'm sorry. I didn't know you felt that way." John wasn't looking for an apology, but it felt different. The air between them wasn't filled with tension anymore. He hadn't played games or made her beg. He had just set a boundary, a healthy, respectful one. They talked more, and over the next few days, Sarah started to understand. The tension lifted, and they worked together to address the issues. It wasn't perfect, but John had regained control, not by punishing her, but by standing up for his own needs with calm assertiveness. This time, the relationship had a chance to grow with respect. When you set a boundary, you open the door for various reactions, each one revealing something about her, not your worth. Here's how to interpret and respond to different reactions without losing your frame. 1. Anger. If she gets angry, it's often a sign that she feels entitled to your attention and isn't used to being held accountable. Her anger is more about her own discomfort than anything you've done wrong. 2. Stay calm and don't get defensive. Firmly restate your boundary. Don't engage in an argument or justify yourself. Anger is a manipulation tactic meant to throw you off center. 2. Guilt. If she tries to make you feel guilty for enforcing your boundary, this is an attempt to shift the blame onto you. She wants you to feel bad for prioritizing yourself. Do acknowledge her feelings, but stay firm on your needs. I understand you're upset, but I can't continue like this. Don't give in or apologize for having standards. Guilt tripping is a form of control, not communication. 3. Indifference can mean she doesn't care enough to engage with the issue, or, worse, that she's emotionally checked out. Do assess whether this relationship is worth continuing. Indifference means you need to set a higher standard for emotional investment. Don't chase her or try to provoke a response. If she's indifferent, you've got to make a choice. Walk away or raise the stakes. 4. Relief indicates that she values the clarity you've provided. This can signal that the relationship has a healthy foundation and she respects your boundaries. Do appreciate her understanding and continue to communicate openly. Don't backtrack or over-apologize. If she's relieved, don't undermine that peace. Her reaction tells you about her, not your worth. Stay grounded in your boundaries and don't internalize her emotional responses. Once you've enforced a boundary, your next move depends entirely on how she responds. Here are your tactical options based on 2 possible outcomes. 1. If she responds. Positively rebuilding trust. If she acknowledges your boundary and is genuinely willing to make changes, there's potential for growth. Rebuilding trust requires time, consistency, and clear communication. Here's how to reset expectations. Time-limited rebuilding plan. Set a clear time frame, for example, 30 days. 60 days during which you will observe if both of you are making an effort to improve the relationship. During this time, establish new habits, better communication, respecting each other's space, and addressing issues as they arise. Criteria for staying. The key here is consistency. Are both of you working together to address the underlying issues? Is there visible, consistent effort to improve? If you're both committed to growth, trust can be rebuilt. But it requires sustained action, not just words. Personal improvement goals. Focus on yourself during this period. Continue building your own life. Hit the gym, develop new hobbies, and deepen your social circle. The healthier and more self-sufficient you are, the stronger the relationship will be too. If she doubles down or gaslights, moving on without bitterness. If she reacts defensively, tries to gaslight you, or refuses to take responsibility, it's time to move on. Don't allow her to manipulate or make you feel guilty for asserting your boundaries. Exit strategy. When you decide to walk away, do it with dignity. Keep your emotions in check. A calm, clear exit statement like, "I've given this relationship everything I can, but there's no mutual respect here. I'm moving on for my own well-being," is all you need. Criteria for leaving. If you find yourself constantly questioning your worth or feeling emotionally drained, it's time to leave. Trust your gut. Don't hang around waiting for a change. Personal improvement goals. Focus on you. Dive into fitness. Pick up new skills. Expand your social circle and build your confidence. This breakup isn't a loss. It's an opportunity to grow into your best self. If she's willing to grow, you can rebuild. But if she's not, don't waste time hoping things will change. Your time, energy, and peace of mind are too valuable to break free from the cycle of drama and emotional manipulation. Here are your new operating principles. High status does not equal manipulation being a high value. Man isn't about playing games or controlling others. True high status is rooted in confidence, integrity, and self-respect. You don't need to manipulate. You simply need to lead by example and enforce your boundaries. Boundaries equals freedom. Boundaries are not about control. They're about protecting your peace. When you set clear, healthy boundaries, you're creating space for mutual respect, not punishment. Healthy relationships thrive on respect, not fear or manipulation. Withdrawal is a tool, not a weapon. Use withdrawal strategically to create emotional space when needed, not as a way to punish or create drama. It's a self-preserving action, not an emotional weapon. When you withdraw, it's about you, not about making her suffer. Keep ignoring reality, and you'll stay stuck in the same toxic loop. You'll keep attracting drama and emotional chaos, wondering why you're not getting the respect you deserve. Old man versus new man mentality. The old man thrives on silent treatment, ego-driven games, and emotional outbursts. The new man sets clear boundaries, communicates effectively, and maintains emotional control. The old man reacts. The new man leads. You've just learned the real way to regain control in your relationships by moving from impulsive revenge to strategic dignity. Instead of playing games or punishing her with silence, you now know that boundaries are your most powerful tool for self-respect and growth. Setting healthy boundaries doesn't mean cutting people off or holding grudges. It means protecting your peace and demanding the respect you deserve. But here's the truth. This shift takes practice. It requires you to resist the urge to react emotionally and instead lead with clarity and calm strength. This week, try using one of the boundary scripts we discussed. Test it out. See how your relationships change when you stop chasing validation and start setting expectations that align with your worth. I want to hear your stories. Drop them in the comments. How has setting a boundary changed the way you approach relationships? What results have you seen? I'll be sharing more case studies like this, so make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. Remember, the man who masters his boundaries becomes unstoppable. And next time, we'll talk about the one thing that separates men who get what they want from those who always end up disappointed. Don't miss it.